You've always known there was something different about you. While others blended in with the crowd, you stood on the outside looking in, wondering why you never quite fit. You questioned your path, your place, and your purpose, but deep down, you carried a fire, a quiet, unshakable knowing that your journey wasn't meant to look like anyone else's. You were set apart not because you were less, but because you were made for more. And that sense of separation wasn't a curse. It was your calling in disguise. The world may not have understood you. They may have labeled you strange, too sensitive, too serious, too intense. But what they saw as weakness, God saw as potential. What they overlooked, God anointed. You were never meant to be ordinary. You were designed for something extraordinary, something that can only be birthed through pain, perseverance, and deep personal transformation. That's why your life felt like a battlefield long before you even knew what you were fighting for. You were chosen before you were ready. You were marked before you even knew what it meant to be called. And with that calling came isolation. Nights where tears soaked your pillow. Days where you felt invisible. Moments where you almost gave up. But still you kept going. That's the proof that something divine is alive in you. Because even when no one else saw it, even when you doubted yourself, something greater held you up. That wasn't just survival, that was purpose in motion. Being chosen isn't glamorous. It's not about titles or applause. It's about obedience in secret, growth in silence, and faith in the dark. It's about walking away from the familiar to chase something eternal. It's about losing things that were never meant to stay, so you can become someone you were always meant to be. You've been through storms that should have broken you, but they didn't, because chosen ones are built in the fire. They are refined, not destroyed by pain. If your life has been harder, it's because your assignment is greater. If your heart feels heavier, it's because you're carrying more than most. You've been equipped not just to endure, but to transform. You weren't chosen to simply exist. You were chosen to lead, to speak, to break chains, to open eyes, to shift the atmosphere wherever you go. That's why mediocrity never settled, because you were never made for a small life. You've been misunderstood, yes, but not misused. You've been delayed, yes, but not denied. Every season of confusion, every silent battle, every hidden tear, it was all part of the preparation. Because God does not elevate without first separating. And if He called you out, it's because He's calling you up. Higher purpose requires deeper surrender. And that's what you've been learning all along. Not to depend on the world for validation, but to trust the whisper of God in your spirit when everything else is silent. This is your moment to stop shrinking to fit in. Stop apologizing for your depth, your dreams, your vision. Stop questioning why your path is different and start recognizing that different is the evidence that you've been chosen. You were set apart for a reason. Not to be perfect, but to be powerful. Not to impress, but to impact. The weight you carry isn't a burden, it's a sign. You're not just someone wandering through life. You're a vessel, a warrior, a light, called to shift generations. And no matter how messy your past may be, no matter how unqualified you feel, no matter who walked away or what you lost, if you're still standing, it means God is still working. You are chosen, you are becoming, and you haven't even seen the full beauty of what you were made for yet. The fire in your soul, the ache in your heart, the dream that won't let you go, that's not random, that's your calling, and it's time to answer it. Being chosen doesn't always come with applause. It often starts with confusion, rejection, and loneliness. People who carry a divine calling on their lives usually find themselves on a different wavelength from the crowd. You may have noticed, even as a child, that you didn't quite fit in. Your thoughts were deeper, your emotions stronger, your questions bolder. While others chased popularity or comfort, something in you longed for truth, meaning, and purpose. That disconnect wasn't an accident, it was the beginning of your separation. And you're chosen, isolation becomes your classroom. God pulls you away from the noise so He can teach you in silence. While others are surrounded by friends, you're left with your thoughts, your battles, and your doubts. But that quiet space is sacred. It's where your strength is built, your identity is shaped, and your purpose is revealed. The world may misread your silence as weakness or your depth as strangeness, but God sees it as preparation. You weren't created to blend in. You were called to stand out. That kind of calling comes with a cost. You'll often be left out of circles you once tried to be part of. Relationships may fall apart without reason. People may misunderstand your intentions, and when you try to explain the stirring in your soul, they just won't get it. But that's okay, because being misunderstood by people is part of being understood by God. The pain of isolation refines you. It strips away the need for approval and replaces it with a hunger for truth. It forces you to depend not on people, but on God. And in those lonely moments, you discover something powerful. You are never truly alone. The same force that set you apart has been guiding you, protecting you, and molding you all along. What felt like rejection was actually redirection. So if you feel misunderstood, overlooked, or alone, don't run from it. Embrace it. It's not a punishment, it's preparation. The solitude you feel now is the soil where your future calling is being planted. And in time, that seed will bloom into something the world has never seen. You are not forgotten, you are chosen. And the loneliness is proof that God is drawing you closer, not pushing you away. When you're chosen for something greater, your life won't look ordinary. The pain you endured, the heartbreaks you couldn't explain, the setbacks that made you question your worth, they weren't random. They were the molding tools in the hands of a higher purpose. While others were living easy and carefree, you were being refined by fire. Not because you're cursed, but because you're being prepared for something others were never meant to carry. The struggle was your training ground. Every tear, every disappointment, every moment you felt like giving up, it was shaping your character, deepening your strength, and sharpening your vision. God wasn't ignoring your pain, He was using it. He allowed the storms not to destroy you, but to awaken something in you, to build endurance, compassion, wisdom, and humility. Things no textbook can teach, no success can buy, and no crowd can applaud. You had to go through what others didn't so you could carry what others can't. You learned to fight battles in silence, to stand when everything in you wanted to fall, to believe when everything around you told you to quit. Those weren't just struggles, they were sacred lessons. You didn't just survive, you were strengthened. You didn't just endure, you were elevated. Think about it. If your life had been easy, would you have grown this deep? If everyone had supported you, would you have learned to stand alone? If nothing had ever broken you, would you have discovered what it means to be truly whole? The struggle gave you something the easy road never could: resilience. And that resilience is part of your calling. You are not weak because you suffered. You are strong because you survived. And now you carry a story, a voice, and a fire that can light the way for others who feel lost. The very pain that tried to silence you is the same pain that will make your purpose undeniable. What broke you yesterday is building you today. So don't curse the struggle. Don't hide from your past. Embrace it, own it, because when you finally step into your calling, you'll realize it was the struggle that made you strong enough to carry the weight of greatness. There comes a time in the journey of the chosen when the crowd disappears. Friends drift away, family doesn't understand, and you find yourself walking a path that feels empty and silent. But that silence has a purpose. You weren't abandoned. You were being called deeper. You were being pulled away from noise, from opinions, from expectations, so you could finally hear what truly matters, the voice of God guiding you. When you're always surrounded by people, it's easy to confuse their voices with truth. You start living for approval, pleasing the crowd, chasing affirmation. But when you're chosen, God removes those distractions. He isolates you, not to punish you, but to prepare you. That loneliness you're feeling isn't a curse. It's a sacred space, a place where you're stripped of all the voices so you can recognize the one voice that's been calling you all along. Some of the greatest transformations happen in isolation. That's where clarity begins. That's where faith deepens. That's where your ears are trained to hear what others miss. It's in the quiet nights, in the unanswered prayers, in the spaces where no one shows up. That's where you begin to recognize divine direction. Because when everything around you goes silent, the only voice left is the one that never leaves. Walking alone teaches you to depend on something greater than people. It shows you that your strength doesn't come from the crowd. It comes from your Creator. You stop needing validation and start walking in revelation. You begin to understand that your purpose was never meant to be understood by everyone. And that's okay. You weren't called to fit in. You were called to stand out. So don't be discouraged by the isolation. Don't rush to fill the emptiness with noise or people. Embrace it. Because the one who chose you is speaking, and what he's saying can only be heard when you're still, when you're quiet, when you're alone. That's where destinies are revealed. That's where power is birthed. That's where you learn to walk by faith, not by sight. You're not alone because you're forgotten. You're alone because you're being taught how to hear the one who never forgets. There's a reason your journey feels heavier than most. There's a reason the weight on your shoulders doesn't match the size of your life right now. It's because you're chosen. And with that divine calling comes a series of battles that others around you may never experience or even understand. You weren't selected for ease, you were selected for greatness. And greatness is forged in fire. When you're chosen, your battles are not ordinary. They are intense, they strike deep, and they often come without warning. Emotional battles, mental battles, spiritual warfare that keeps you up at night. Attacks that come not only from enemies, but sometimes from people you love. The path of the chosen is not smooth. It is marked by storms. But those storms aren't there to destroy you. They're shaping you, building your resilience, forming the warrior in you that comfort never could. You'll notice others moving forward with ease, while you keep getting hit by wave after wave. That's not failure. That's favor in disguise. You're being trusted with weight because you were built to carry more. And every hardship you face is preparing you to handle what you've been called to lead. Every tear is watering the soil of your future. Every closed door is redirecting you to something more aligned with your purpose. What others see as pain, you must begin to see as preparation. God doesn't train champions in public. He molds them in private battles. The pressure is personal because the calling is personal. You're being equipped in secret for something that will be revealed in time. And the very battles that are breaking you now are actually the ones building the strength you'll need for the platform you haven't stepped onto yet. So if you've been asking why me, here's the truth. Because you're the one who can handle it. Because what you're carrying is not ordinary. Because your mission isn't small. You were set apart for something greater, and every blow you've taken is evidence that you're being prepared, not punished. The fight is fierce because your calling is big, and though others may never understand the intensity of your struggles, heaven knows, and heaven equips its warriors accordingly. There comes a moment in every chosen person's life when the noise of the world becomes too loud and the distractions become too heavy. That's when the separation begins. Not because you're better than others, but because you're being prepared to hear something deeper, something higher, something divine. When you are chosen, you are not meant to blend in. You are meant to be set apart. And part of that setting apart means walking through seasons of loneliness. This kind of loneliness isn't just about the absence of people. It's the absence of voices that used to influence you. It's the silence that makes you uncomfortable. It's the stripping away of support systems you thought you couldn't live without. Why? Because God needs your attention. And sometimes He can't get it when you're surrounded by too much noise. When you are constantly surrounded by the opinions, expectations, and validations of others, it becomes hard to discern the voice within, the voice that's calling you higher. Being alone doesn't mean you're forgotten. It means you're being pulled aside for refinement. The same way gold is separated from everything else so it can be purified, you are being isolated so you can be redefined. Your old way of thinking, old habits, and old environments can't come with you into your next season. So, the separation is necessary, not as punishment, but as preparation. In solitude, you'll start to hear things you couldn't hear before. Clarity will rise, vision will return. The noise that once kept you confused will be replaced by a steady inner knowing. It's in these quiet places that your next steps are revealed. This is where your assignment becomes clear. You were not called to fit in, and that's why you've been feeling so out of place. You were never meant to walk the wide road with the crowd. You were meant for the narrow path, often walked alone, but always under divine guidance. The silence isn't empty, it's full of instruction. And while others chase comfort and company, you're being developed in the secret place. Don't fear the alone time. It's not loneliness, it's alignment. You're not being left behind, you're being led deeper. Being chosen means embracing a journey filled with challenges that test your faith and resolve. Yet these trials are not without purpose. They serve as the furnace where your character is refined and your spirit strengthened. When you face opposition, doubt, or hardship, it's not a sign that you're forgotten or abandoned. Rather, it is proof that you are on a path that requires growth beyond what is comfortable or familiar. But the struggles you encounter are tools shaping you into the person you are destined to become. They reveal the depth of your commitment and force you to rely on a strength greater than your own. This strength comes from within, but is nurtured by a higher power that walks with you every step of the way. Every obstacle becomes a lesson, every setback a setup for a greater comeback. In this process, patience and perseverance become your closest allies. The road of the chosen is rarely smooth or predictable. It demands resilience, a refusal to give up when the journey seems long or when the world doubts your purpose. The fire of testing burns away fear and hesitation, revealing a clarity of purpose and a passion that cannot be extinguished. Remember, greatness is not achieved by avoiding hardship, but by facing it with courage and faith. Your challenges are the proving ground where your true potential is unleashed. So when the weight of the world presses down, know that you are being prepared for something far beyond what you can see now. This final keynote is a reminder that your path, though difficult, is divinely designed. Every struggle, every trial, every moment of uncertainty is part of the preparation for the extraordinary role you were set apart to fulfill. Embrace the process, trust the journey, and keep moving forward with hope and determination. You are chosen not to follow the crowd, but to lead with purpose, strength, and unwavering faith. Continuing on this idea, it's important to realize that being chosen often means walking a path that few understand. You might feel isolated or misunderstood because your vision and mission don't align with those around you. This solitude, while difficult, is a vital part of the process. It allows you to focus deeply on your purpose without distraction, to listen to the quiet guidance within, and to build inner strength that can't be shaken by outside opinion. The loneliness that sometimes accompanies being set apart is not a punishment, but a sign that you are moving towards something unique and powerful. It is a space for reflection, growth, and preparation. During these moments, when the world seems distant or indifferent, remind yourself that you are not alone in the bigger sense. A higher presence watches over you, guiding your steps, even if you cannot always feel it clearly. This journey also calls for humility. Recognizing that you are part of a greater plan means accepting that some things are beyond your control. Your role is to remain faithful and obedient to the path laid before you, even when the destination is unclear. This humility will open doors to unexpected blessings and opportunities, often in ways you never imagined. At the heart of this experience is the power of hope. Hope fuels the spirit and lights the way through the darkest valleys. It reminds you that your current struggles are temporary and that a brighter future awaits. Hope transforms obstacles into stepping stones and challenges into chances to shine. Ultimately, the life of the chosen one is a testament to resilience, faith, and unwavering commitment. It is a call to rise above fear and doubt, to trust in the unseen forces working in your favor, and to fulfill the extraordinary destiny that was set aside just for you. Embrace this truth deeply and let it inspire every step you take on your remarkable journey.